Here now to explain more, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, along with California Congressman Tom McClintock and Congressman-elect, congratulations, sir, Darrell Issa. Welcome aboard, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. So this was, as I left this last segment, and now perfectly into you here, it really was a red wave. This was a rejection of what the Democrats have been moving, what the left is moving, identity politics, the cancel culture, crazy relationships with Iran and North Korea, the tradition of bowing that Obama said. We wanted strength, we got it. We wanted a good economy, we got it. So, Congressman Issa, do you see, when it comes to the nature of what it is that's happening here with the House, we know Nancy Pelosi is going to be back in. How do you think this is going to work out with this razor-thin margin?
Well, we only need 4 or 5 Democrats to fear for their own future, and we can stop legislation. Not as effectively as the firewall of the Senate, but we can stop it. What's important, though, is that with Steve Scalise and Leader McCarthy, is that we're going to be able to offer real valid alternatives, motions that are reasonable, that at least 6 or 7 Democrats, perhaps in fear for their own mortality politically, will vote for. And that means we're going to win. We're going to be able to win against a Nancy Pelosi in the way we weren't able to for the last 2 years. And part of it is, quite candidly, what happened in California, where voters rejected the very people they elected 2 years ago in large numbers. Michelle Steele, Young Kim, David Valadao, and of course, re-electing Mike Garcia. Those are all districts that went Democrat that now have gone Republican again.
Well, Congressman Scalise, they won in part in 18 because they talked about the issues. And they said, we don't care about it. We're not into impeachment. We don't like Nancy Pelosi. We care about your issues. And then what is the first thing that and really the only thing they did impeachment while the coronavirus was coming over from China. So that was clearly the American people were watching and they cared. When you have this kind of a margin now in trying to at least stop them from doing damage in that regard, Congressman Scalise, what is at the top of your list about what matters in this next term coming up?
Tammy, the thing that matters most to me and my Republican colleagues is fighting for those small businesses, those hardworking families that have been left behind, that are struggling right now because a lot of these states, mostly led by Democrats, are shutting everything down. And, states like Florida, where they're opening things up, and Texas are doing well. States like New York and California, where they're shutting everything down, are doing really, really poorly, and businesses are floundering. People, by the way, are dying from non-COVID related things. They're not getting their mammograms and colonoscopies. Kids that are not being allowed to go back to school are being denied their educational future. So we're going to be fighting for all of those people that are being left behind. Look, you've got this vaccine. You saw the great report today that because of President Trump's leadership with Operation Warp Speed, there's now a contract with United Airlines to distribute the vaccine all throughout the United States. I mean, this is a military effort with the smartest minds from the FDA, from the greatest drug companies in the world, like Pfizer, Moderna, so many others. I mean, we're seeing President Trump's policies work for families. What we're not seeing is Speaker Pelosi care about those families, and that's why she was rejected at the polls, because of wanting to defund the police, wanting to raise taxes, literally pushing a pro-abortion agenda when we were trying to fight for the unborn, including babies born alive outside of the womb that the Democrats still wanted to allow to die. I mean, these were the radical socialist agenda items that Pelosi fought for. We're going to be fighting for those hardworking families.
Well, that's good news, because clearly with what happened now and the disarray and being so wrong with what happened, Congressman McClintock, that there's a realization that there's going to be another wave in 22. And that's where, of course, you can make some headway in getting some Democrats to work with you. At the same time, sir, there seems to be this fantasy that in the event Mr. Trump is not in the White House again for 4 years, that his 73 million voters suddenly are going to disappear, and that his agenda doesn't matter, and that the red wave that happened based on his accomplishments, that's just going to become a memory. Do you imagine the Trump agenda, the nature of what we voted for, and the transformation that happened in these last 4 years is still on the minds of Republicans and will still be represented regardless of who's in the White House?
more than Republicans. I think there are a lot of Democrats and independents that are starting to connect the dots between the policies of the Democratic left and what they have consistently delivered. I think that's why we made gains in California. People are living with that firsthand. You look wherever the Democratic left controls policy, you'll see exactly the same things. Failing schools, rampant homelessness, rising crime, skyrocketing energy costs, water shortages, unaffordable housing, high unemployment, crushing regulations and taxes, failing businesses, fleeing families. That's what the Democratic left delivers. And I think Californians are getting fed up with that. And I think Americans across the country are looking at places like California and New York and saying, we don't want to go there. And that's why the Georgia election is so important.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Americans know they're going to look to men like you when it comes to being a firewall against the rest of the country becoming San Francisco or Los Angeles. Because that's not what we've certainly voted for, not by any means at all. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. You've got a busy couple of years coming up.